Okay, I'll begin very awkwardly. All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Nandini. This is Figuring It Out Alive, and today I have a awesome guest with me. An awesome guest with me. This is Srishti Asthana. Hi, Srishti.
Hi, Nandini. Thank you for having me.
You're absolutely welcome, and thank you so much for joining me on this channel. And today we're going to be talking about money and manipulation. So, a very juicy topic. And before we begin, I just want to introduce who Srishti is. Srishti Asthana is a psychologist and a mental health advocate. She has worked with AIMS, and she's the founder of the awareness platform Words of a Psychologist, which I believe you can find on Instagram and X/Twitter. Is that right?
And Facebook. Yeah.
Great. And currently, she's a consultant at Perspective Psychiatric Center and an advisory board member at the First Episode Psychosis Program by Schizophrenia Research Foundation in Chennai. So Srishti is also running a virtual private practice. So welcome and thank you so much for your time, Srishti. I can't wait to get into our juicy topic with you.
I'm excited to be here.
Great, awesome. So I have made quite a few videos on money, right? And I'm really surprised to find that the majority of my audience after, like on YouTube, after making those videos, was male. Not many women, not many females clicked on my channel or those particular videos. So I
Mhm.
would love to explore the topic of gender and money. And maybe we can start with our mindset around money and how that comes about.
Absolutely. So, I think we'll start with the mindset aspect. So we acquire our money management skills, what we believe around money, how much we feel we deserve money, or how much we feel like we're always going to be in a financial mess, etc. How it is something that we inherit subconsciously, not it's not like, oh yeah, like your parents are giving you their limitations, but yes, we observe since we are born pretty much, and that information is fed into the back of our minds, and it does impact our day-to-day lives decisions and the choices we'll make, the messes we get caught up in, and also the good decisions that you make, right? And I'm speaking for the average person and not the part of the population that is mentally ill. This particular topic for me right now is relevant to the average person who is mentally okay. So, we see a lot of examples. Like for example, if there is a history that like for example, I do have a friend. They're from a family that was, during the partition times, like the previous to previous generation had fled from Pakistan, and now they're settled in India. And so because that generation from that family saw so much struggle, of course they had to do a lot to make ends meet and just survive. So now, of course, their belief systems, it trickled on to the next generation, which was relatively more stable. They, of course, they, for the first generation that I spoke about, maybe for them, survival was a threat, like their reality was a threat for them, and they had to just make it out alive in your language. So, in the second generation, so the friends, parents' generation, the threat was not immediate, perhaps, it was not so much in their reality, in their everyday, but the mindset to just survive, that was definitely impacting their actions. So in with that generation, not just in that family, but then in a lot of families, you will see that, especially there's such a history, that if one does not come from a long line of stable financial background, that there's a lot of stinginess in a generic language, that sometimes we'll say, oh, they're so stingy, why can't they just buy something that is so important, and why are they not keeping up with the trends? This friend of mine always proudly says that, oh, ये जो बेड है ना, ये हमारे यहाँ 40 साल से है.
Yeah.
While in today's day and age, that kind of a culture is picking up again. We're moving towards minimalism. We're moving towards a time where, oh, it's an antique. Let us celebrate it, right? There's so much
Yeah.
history around that, but it wasn't always the case. So so that generation, the second generation, they were preserving things
Hmm.
very hard, even though if it was not required, they didn't live a flourishing life. Okay. They made a lot of sacrifices, a lot of compromises. They really ruled with a tight fist on their own finances,
Hmm.
to the point of maybe compromising on anything that was not considered a basic need. Okay.
May I ask a question? So I'm actually going to start documenting my own journey with decluttering things because in my family, hoarding is definitely, it runs pretty deep. And I definitely have a lot of those tendencies, or I did in the past, and I really try to work through them. So along with these in common terms, stingy aspects of this generation, have you found that that generation also tends to hold on to a lot of things? Like, there's a common saying of, if you find, an old, plastic ice cream tub in your fridge, it's not going to have ice cream, it's going to have something else in it,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
sort of
of
thing.
course. And that's the case in most of our homes, right? Like we sometimes you're hungry in the middle of the night, you see that old tin of cookies, or like in maybe in your storage closet, it has all the needles and the threads.
Yeah.
So yeah, that generation, and I think if we look at Indian history, we'll see that the past 200, 300 years were not smooth sailing. We've had a lot of like economic ups and downs. So of course, that is bound to have impacted the previous generations, and it is continuing to impact us today. So that second generation of that family, it was very conservative with their money. And they were like, let's manage our finances in very little, save for a bad day in the future. That is what survival for too long does to you, right? It is all about preparing for crisis, preparing to fight off some unknown battle, right? And now the third generation is in a much more comfortable place, but a lot of them are witnessing careless spending, struggling with credit cards. So now you see the flip, right? Because this generation is from a generation where we are seeing all these videos where you are ordering like a haul, you're doing a haul of some latest company, right? You order 10 clothes and you try them on, and you should always
Absolutely.
replace and throw, and everything is replaceable, right?
Yeah.
So this generation is struggling with credit card and loans, because they're like, oh, my parents didn't have an abundance mindset, so I'm going to have an abundance mindset even if I'm paying off my credit card with an interest. So
Yeah.
you see how all these three generations have had their own particular, and on the surface a conservative person might say that the people in this generation, they're crazy, irresponsible, etc. But this is a generation that has an issue with impulse control, and has a difficult time in stopping instant gratification,
Yeah.
because that's not what they've grown up with. It's not just limited to the parents, but parents played a huge role. Okay, so deprivation in parents led to, oh, I need to be abundant now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's going on the opposite end.
You know what really sort of strikes me with this, going into like a sort of political field here. It's sort of like the previous generations, as you said, were saving up for a bad day, right? Like for a rainy day. They wanted to have those savings because that's what they had experienced. That's what their previous generations had seen people colonize the land and strip it of, not just strip the land, but also human beings of their rights and their own labors. I'm not really a history major, especially I don't know even like 1% of Indian history, but I heard about like the amazing people who used to weave and make clothes in India. They used to have their thumbs broken and stuff, So in so many ways, that threat, even if I was not from a weaver's family, like that would be like there, like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen next? And whereas I feel like with this generation, with climate change and the things that we're seeing happen, it's like, is there a future out there? I mean,
Yeah.
like,
Like,
it's like this might be the end. And this also, and even those who are a little more practical and they know that, well, of course, there will be future generations, but a lot of us, especially like me and my brother, we cannot even conceive of thinking of having a family for so many different reasons, but also because the future does seem to look bleak. And this might be like the end of the times, it seems that way, where we're able to be so indulgent. Not, and when I say we, I mean we as in, oh my gosh. actually two things are coming. One is that, up until now, all the struggles and all the savings have led us to this place now where we do have the ability, like the fact that we even have access to credit cards
Yeah.
is a great way of, you know, um, empowering us with money, and money is power in our context.
Yeah.
But how we choose to use that is something that, as you said, there's impulse control, there are all these trends and things that we're seeing. Perhaps in the past, people were more aware of their own, neighborhood surroundings as
Yeah.
opposed to what the rich, like richest man on in
Yeah.
India's family is doing for their wedding. Yeah.
Absolutely. Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. So that degree of awareness may or may not be a good thing. It creates a lot of fear of missing out. It creates this illusion of YOLO, you only live once. Okay.
Mm.
Yes, we are in a space like I think for a rational, healthy adult, how they would look at today's time is, of course, I'm not sure about having kids because my parents, like I saw what they did to me emotionally, and I don't want to pass that on. That's one thing we hear very commonly.
Yep.
uh, Second thing is, the environment and our like, do we really need more population? That becomes another debate. The
Yes.
third debate might be that, can I really afford it anymore? Like the way
Yes.
things are getting more expensive with time, is that a decision that I even want to make for my future and for my offsprings? How a healthy person would think in this circumstances, okay, it seems like the future is bleak, but what if I do end up surviving and living long enough, or the planet does stay around long enough for another 50, 100 years, or my lifespan? Okay. And if I YOLO my entire life through it, like, if I'm just spending all of my time, my money, my resources with no acknowledgement of the possibility of a future, then that is not rational adult thinking.
I
When,
agree. Yeah.
yeah. So, I think it's very infantile to, and that's that whole sense of doom. Of course, we're all living with that pressure. I still remember when we were younger, 2012 was supposed to be the last year of the planet, and there was a movie about it. That didn't happen. So I'm not denying climate change. I'm not denying the possibility that in the future we really don't know what's going to happen. But as a healthy adult, it is our responsibility to think realistically and understand that we don't there are multiple outcomes that are
Yes.
possible, and I need to be as prepared as I can without ruining my present. So, yeah.
Just to throw in something silly, there's a meme going around about this 2012 thing, which is like, oh, 2012 was supposed to be the end of the world, but has anyone really lived since then? Or like, it's something about like, has life really been worth living since then? Which is kind of funny. But yeah, I totally agree with everything that you're saying. Um, so I feel like we've talked about like generations, and
Yeah, yeah,
especially definitely within um I mean, definitely within the Indian context, but part of a lot of my audience happens to also be from America and North America, especially Canada and the US.
yeah,
But yeah, even like internationally, in the last literally 115 years, there were two world wars that happened. The Cold War happened, which affected everyone as well. And then, ever since then, the sort of neoliberal agenda has made it seem less like war, but the whole globalized system, there's a war on nature right now. There's a war on humanity and so many other things. So feeling this sense of do you have any sort of, I guess, questions for reflection or any sort of tips on how to like get away from this sort of ecological anxiety slash, this doom mindset for the future, or at least to, as you said, start working on our mindsets for them to be less, impulse, how would I say this? Like, for us to be less impulsive and become more rational, uh,
right,
decision making. Yeah.
right. I think one of the few steps that I would recommend, as silly as it sounds, is to write a letter to money as though it's a human being, okay? Explaining your relationship with it, right? So, for example, dear money, I feel terrified of you. I feel I can never have enough of you. Whatever comes up for you. Okay. As silly as it sounds. But these things, once we start writing in the flow of it, we don't realize sometimes a lot of subconscious material comes up in that. So that becomes a good cue for us to examine our beliefs. Okay. And then we handpick what seems most triggering in that letter. Okay. And we start examining and question. That would be the first step to write the letter. The second can be picking out the aspects and issues that seem most triggering or most fear based for you. The third step might be to examine where is that belief system coming from. Is it my culture? Is it my society? Is it my neighbor? Was it my parents? Was it is it my spouse? Okay, where is it really coming from? And it's important. The last step would be to see the countering examples of it. Okay. We need evidence of the thing. We need concrete proof that, people who don't function like that in a doomsday mindset, okay, they are also out there and they're also doing decently. Okay. So giving yourself evidence that, okay, even if I shift out of these rigid mindsets and belief systems and I forgive certain people who've influenced me and I forgive myself for being influenced. So there is a whole life out there and there are people who are living that way in a successful manner. So give yourself that evidence. And if it is really, really hard, then seek professional help also because, therapy is something that's so beautiful and all encompassing and you can set your own goals, right? So working on your finances could be one of them.
Yeah, I absolutely, you know what? Everything that you just said, but in completely reverse order is what I did in one of my sessions.
Mm.
I'm a mind transformation coach alongside being an English teacher, mindset transformation coach, and I did a session in Hyderabad on the psychology of money is what it was called. And what I got people to do, initially I just threw up a bunch of phrases on like a PowerPoint and I got people to sort of react to them if they'd heard these phrases before around money, like things like money is the root of all evil in English,
Yeah.
or पैसा बोलता है or something like that, like just things that they might have heard. And almost everyone in the audience had heard all these different things around money. And
Yeah.
one or two of them were positive, a penny saved is a penny earned, which I think is a pretty positive thing to think about. Like if you save money, hey, you could treat it as you've earned it. It's a positive thing. And then what I got them to do was I got them to think about what did they hear about money growing up,
Mm.
especially when they were very, very, very young, when they witnessed conversations, or if they went to the market, they went to the mall with their
Mm.
parents. What did their parents say around money, especially around them or each other? And I asked them to think about how do you think a child of that age, if they could connect to their inner child, that was great. Well,
Mm.
most of the audience had children themselves, but
Mm.
like, how do you think that made you feel? And I gave them some examples as well. And then I went on to say, do you feel like you're still holding on to those feelings and saying those same things these days in your life? And have your circumstances actually changed financially since then? And do you see how back then, because I really believe in um like not having this sort of thing spiral into great negativity. I mean, whatever negativity comes out, needs to be released, expressed, and all those other things. But for it to become a blame game is completely reductive, and it's not, in my opinion, it's not going to help. Oh, like, you messed me up. This is why, this is why, blah, blah, blah. That's just, once again, not taking responsibility for your financial reality. So, like, I often tell everyone I know that we have to realize we are 100% responsible for our finances. And it was a little tricky for me to start saying that very publicly because I know that so much of our money is also determined by our social class and all these other things, and our access, our accessibility to good jobs and good universities and so many other factors which seem to be out of our hands, and they are for a great extent of the population out of, these things are out of one's control. But nevertheless, like wherever we're sitting, let's take full responsibility for where we are right now and how we're spending, even if we have 10 rupees in our hands. In a way, and also like I really, really believe in the power of gratitude. So for me, like part and then so at the very end of this exercise and a few other exercises, I was like, okay, it's time for us to start writing a letter to money, because through, taking them through the process, they came to realize that money wasn't the enemy. Money was, if anything, something that could really help them achieve their dreams. The fact that, you know we're even sitting here, and you, the audience, is listening to this conversation. Money comes into this whole thing. You have money for internet somehow, or like to pay to view this. You have some sort of device you viewing it on, even if it's not your own device. Let's say you're sitting in school and watching this. Money is around everything. There's almost nothing in this world that's untouched by money these
Hmm.
days.
Hmm.
So for
Absolutely.
us to feel really grateful about the things that genuinely bring us joy, hope, and positivity. And then associate that with money, just as you said, when you have to counter the examples, the negative examples with the positive ones, and then use those examples to empower you in that direction. So, like, feeling really grateful to money. And, part of this exercise was also like, there are four really, really powerful phrases, which are, I'm sorry, please forgive
Please
me,
forgive me. I thank you. I love you.
thank you, and I love you, the Ho'oponopono prayer. So I used that as a prompt to get them to start journaling and just be like, if you had to say sorry to money, what would you say sorry to money for? If you had to ask for forgiveness, what instances come to your mind? If you wanted to thank money, what would you thank it for truly, from your heart, not like I'm forcing you to say thank you to money. And
Hmm.
of course, I love you. Like as soon as we go through that process, we realize, oh my God, money's money's such a great encourager, because even when I've made really bad decisions, like money was there for me to make bad decisions. So money supported me my entire life, whether it be
Hmm.
good or bad. So yeah, that's awesome.
So,
Yes.
is it okay if I add something here about
Please.
victimization?
Yes.
So, I think that one can reach a point of taking charge and being more adult-like and responsible for finances when they acknowledge the various factors that have in. So, the healing journey begins around anything when you examine the source of your faulty belief systems, where you process it, when you grieve what you didn't have. Like, for example, if you were someone who had a father and who was very irresponsible, who perhaps was very lenient with his friends, allowing the friends to walk all over him financially, or some he seemed to have had money for parties but not for your education, whatever it may be, right? There's a certain grief to that, there's a certain pain to that, and that also psychologically handicaps us till we don't sit down with it, grieve it, and be open to more possibilities. So yes, victimization around money does happen. Money also becomes a tool of control in many people's lives. Okay, that is the truth. Like, if we speak about gender and money, there are so many women who can't leave abusive relationships because their husband is the one who's earning. And of course, on paper it's easy to sort of say that you can, there's always a fresh start. But if this woman, she isn't a part of a strong community that has her back, and we're living in isolating times, okay, so community can be that one friend who's like, oh, leave it, come stay with me, I got your back, okay. Or it could be that one aunt who's like, okay, I'll cover for you, don't worry about it. Or parents, if that the woman does not have that one person or that community to fall back upon, then how is she going to make any change, right? So there are many, many factors that do play a role when when we feel victimized by the system or by our loved ones. And there is a grief to that. Until we don't sit with that grief, till we don't cry, maybe grieving might not look like necessarily sitting and crying for everyone, but just the sheer disappointment of it, and accepting that grief, that okay, it's been painful in certain ways for me through this journey, and these people have not played a positive influence in my life. But after that, we can go to the but I have agency, I am an adult. But there's a part of you that has been almost traumatized over years and years and years through instability, abuse, or just like a lack of resources, etc. So I think it is okay to acknowledge that. It's okay to sit with that pain at the core of our hearts, process it, grieve, and we see healing as a very linear thing, that it's point A to B and we're good. So I don't think it's that simple. It's all zigzags, and someday we'll feel best, and someday, let's say I took one of your coaching sessions to improve my relationship with money, and you have a very good program, and I start working and I start feeling excellent, okay, and I start saving money, I start spending it wisely, I'm in more control of my impulses, but 6 years down the line someone fires me from my job. That trigger is instantly going to bring back everything, right? But the intensity of all of that comes, or all of that hitting you in the same way, that intensity goes down once you actually grieve whatever you did not have growing up. Okay. So I think that is also something that is important to mention.
Very, very much so. Thank you so much for bringing that up because, yes, absolutely, yes. Like we have to be so gentle to ourselves, because this is ourself and it's so, I feel like society's really like done a proper invasion in a lot of people's brains, which is like, oh, it's just money, like blah blah blah, be understanding of your parents, blah blah blah. But it's like, well, I was a baby and my parents were like faulty too, and like to get to realize it's okay, like, it was their first time being parents just as much as it was my first time being a child. And they had their own parents that, they're dealing with a lot of stuff and they're having a child at that point. I know it's so thank you so much for mentioning that. I truly, truly, second, and something just came to my mind. I actually have two free resources, which I'm going to link in the description of this video, and they're completely free. And one of them is a financial reality check. It is a checklist of 9 things. I think there are nine. I believe there are 9 things where you can just go yes or no, yes or no, yes or no. And if you have more no's, or whatever you say no to, because it's like every point is extremely important, that could be an area that you can start thinking of improving, because those points are just things that we all should sort of have in order for us to feel financially safe. It's like the base layer of financial security and stuff. And the other thing I have is called a consumer check-in. I created it myself, and it's questions where it helps you curb your spending cravings. So if you're a person who likes to, scroll through all those, online websites, or if you impulse buy whenever you go out shopping, this is a great tool that you can use to figure out, wait a second, do I actually need that? And just through going through those questions consciously and really assessing the item of your desire and looking at each question, through each question, you might just go, just that pause sometimes helps in saving money. Many times we just, boop, boop, boop. And because it's so online now, it's so just technical. Like we buy all these things, not all of us. I mean, some of us, like for me, I got out of that habit a few years ago. But it used to be so easy. It's like, oh, my cart needs like 10 more rupees. Okay, let me see what's worth 10 rupees, and boom, like another 500 is added, just like that. So please check out those two free resources in the description. They might be helpful. Yeah, great. Is there anything else that you would like to mention, Srishti?
Um, I would say that I think we have a Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's about motivation, what motivates a human being. Maybe we can have a picture of it here as I'm speaking
Yes.
on the subject. So traditionally, I mean, now it's gone on to have like seven different aspects, but traditionally it had five. So the most basic human needs, the most basic motivator for you to go forward in life, it's just food, shelter, clothing, your capacity to stand the weather, all of those very basic things. And then you move on to other things, only when these basic needs are catered to, we can really think about belongingness, self-esteem, self-actualization. I think today in on TikTok culture, or like otherwise, we have a lot of self-help gurus who are preaching that, oh, we should all aim for self-actualization. In we have this saying which I really like. I think it's catchy. Bhuke bhajan na hoye gopala, which means, dear God, when I'm empty stomach, I can't even pray to you. Okay.
Mhm.
So I think that's such a good sentence, when you don't know where your next paycheck is coming from, when you don't know if, God forbid, there's a financial emergency, will you be able to cater to yourself? Are your loved ones looked out for? Do you have access to shelter? Do you have access to just a basic decency, you know, the decent standard of living?
Yeah.
Um, and this is just basics. This is not even aesthetic needs or
No.
not something super fancy, right? Then you will feel more secure as a human being if these needs are catered to. And the security in today's day and age, it comes from money. It
Mhm.
comes from two things, I think, money and community. Okay. Um, but to access that community and to kind of even have the energy to deal with that community, you need your extreme basics, right? And I think it's very easy for us to say, oh, have an abundance mindset and it'll be fixed, or think positively, or listen to a podcast and it'll be fixed. But no, it's a very deeply emotional process that takes a lot from you, but then it's very rewarding at the end. So, yes, give money the degree of importance it needs, okay? And YOLO, is not a good mantra to live by as a healthy adult person. So, of course, I'm not saying that cut down on all your vacations, cut down on your purchases. No, not at all. But look out for your future self as well. Okay. So, as you're making each decision, just take a pause and think about your future self. Think about the kind of pitfalls you can avoid if you're a bit more mindful in the present. So, that's what I would like to say um, as a closure to this subject.
Thank you very much. And just to add to that, like I think people who do the work are the bravest people in the world. Like I think having to face yourself and face your past is the most challenging thing. I mean, for me anyway, I'll just speak for myself. Like
Yeah.
I have not in some ways I would say I've had a hard life, in some ways I haven't had a hard life, and either way, like it's just to just sit with my grief, to sit
Yeah.
with the ickier aspects of me, my shame
Yeah.
has been so, as you put it, like so, there's nothing that has been more rewarding than that. And sadly, there are no rewards for it. I can't hang up a plaque and say, look, I did my inner work for an entire year, but I wish there were.
The
I think,
reward is the
yeah,
reward is you start choosing better people who mirror the same things as you.
yeah,
That's the reward. And 10 years down the line, you'll see that, oh my God, that work that I did, it's led to such beautiful relationships, such beautiful memories, such beautiful experiences that I wouldn't have chosen if I weren't coming from a relatively healed space.
true.
So there is a reward. It's just that we have to patiently see it, because I think great things are built slowly over time and not through instant gratification.
Absolutely true. And just as you said that, and I think that's even better than what I was going to say. I think the only reward is the smile on my face, like the actual lightness I feel. And the fact that I'm able to do this with you, like, hey, if you believe in the whole law of attraction thing, like I'm attracting really cool people just through my energy, just being better. I feel like a better person, and I have no, shame in saying that. Like I'm just so much better a Nandini than I was a few years ago, just a better person. And yeah, thank you
Yeah.
for, for everything that you've said. I would love to have you on again. Maybe we can talk about something else.
Yeah.
Uh, all right, so thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I'm sure you did, and I got a lot of nuggets out of it. And I'm so, I feel really proud of myself for like I always think people who do psychology are just like, whoa, like they know everything, and I'm really really thankful that Srishti, you first came on, and that you're so openly willing and sharing, and your insights are just so amazing. So this has been an absolute pleasure for me, and remember that you can reach out to both of us, and please tell me what should we talk about next, because I would love to have Srishti on again. And Srishti would love to be on here as well. And we would love to answer some other questions you may have, or if you would like us to speak on a particular topic, please let us know either in the comment section, or if you want to do it privately, you can also reach out to us through Instagram. Is that best for you, Srishti?
Yes, possibly. Yes.
Yes. Okay, so you can see our handles on the screen. I am not often on Instagram for mental health reasons, but I'm at Figuring It Out Live, and Srishti is Words of a Psychologist, and it's at words of a underscore psychologist. You can also see it on the screen in the description. There will be links. You can click them. Boom. Fantastic. Anything else to add?
I think we're good.
Awesome. Okay, thank you very much. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Great.